wanted to welcome you and welcome Gaylord and welcome you to Vanderbilt and the Owen Graduate School of Management. We're very proud of what we do here and appreciate all your willingness to participate and be the guinea pig for us today. So thank you for being here.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A session to see what's on you guys' minds. But it's great to be here. I feel our company has a big investment in the Owen School. We, out of my direct reports, I think I have, out of the 8 or 9 people that report to me, I think 5 of them are Vandy grads from the MBA program, and one lawyer. We'll put him aside.
Well, the world needs a few lawyers, but we can't go to that.
Yeah.
You're from England originally.
Really? Yeah, as they say here in Nashville, you talk funny. I talk funny.
And where did you get that funny accent? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in south of London in a little town called Tunbridge in Kent, and lived in the United Kingdom, in Britain, England for 40 years. I moved to America when I was 39 years of age. And since that time, my accent has become heavily influenced by the South. So you'll hear me break into y'all and things like that. I'm multilingual.
And what brought you to the United States?
When I was 39 years of age in 1987, I used to be responsible for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa operation of Holiday Inns, and so it was the chairman of Holiday that asked me to move to the United States. And there's a long story around this one. I didn't want to come. He'd asked me twice, and on the second time he said, "Can you be over in Memphis a week from now and come talk to me?" Went to Memphis, and I was expecting that I was going to leave the company. I had it all worked out that I was not going to come to America to help Mike Rose, who was the chairman at the time, deal with the leverage recap that we had just done. It was the most bizarre moment. I think one of the things you're going to ask me is, the moments in your life that has had an impact in your life. And I walked into his office, and he said to me, "Colin, are you coming to come over here and work for me?" And I don't know why my brain went from "no, I'm not" to "okay." But it was one of those in moments in life that I answered the question, and then I walked out of his office 30 minutes later, and I thought, my God, what have I done? Moving to Memphis, Tennessee. The regret I had is I didn't do it 2 years earlier.
Were you married at the time?
Oh yeah, 2 boys. My boys, when we moved, were 6 and 4. And now they're Americans. We're all citizens, and they will never live back in England.
So as one of those marital conversations you have, honey, you took the job without calling me up. Did you get one of those? Or?
No, it's funny with my wife. I've moved several times. When I moved to Memphis, and then and we'll talk a little bit about Harrah's in a minute. I was with Gary Loveman, who came and talked here. I was co-president and chief financial officer for Harrah's, and we moved the company's headquarters to Las Vegas, and then I was recruited here. Every time I've moved my wife, she's moved kicking and screaming. That's the funny thing. I moved her to America. She didn't want to come. Moved her from Memphis she loved living in Memphis. We moved her to Las Vegas. She didn't want to go to Vegas. Then when I said Nashville, she didn't want to leave Las Vegas. And now she probably will never leave Nashville. She loves Nashville. She's one of these homemakers.
As a boy, did you have aspirations to be a CEO someday and run a big company?
No. No. Melinda asked me that question, and here's the truthful answer to the question. I'm one of these cats that have very much focused on the job that I had, and I very much always wanted to do the very best job I could in the job that I had. And with Holiday, I was promoted about 8 times in that organization from my background is in accounting, as a controller for the UK operation, to Europe, to Middle East, then came to America, and every time I got promoted. But I never, at the age of 21, 22, I never sort of said, I've got to be a CEO. I personally don't believe it works that way. I think if you're focused on yourself and the future, I think you miss the opportunities of the present. and the learning experiences of the president. And so, no, it was first discussed with me about being a CEO at Harrah's when Phil Satry said, I've told the board that, when I retire, you're next up, and this was 12 years ago. And I'm thinking, do I want to finish my career in the gaming business in this role? And that was the first time, I suppose, I really thought about being a CEO.
You were CFO of Harrah's for a while, and then you had an odd circumstance, and I'd like to dig into that one a little bit. So there was a tripartite office of the president, and you were one of three. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, it was an interesting situation. Harrah's had gone through an enormous transformation. In '92, I was asked to look at how we grow the company, and it was a 4-casino business. And I told you earlier over lunch, Jim, I wrote a plan for the business that the board said, okay, now go execute. That literally grew the business dramatically all across the country. We acquired 3-4 public companies. But in the middle of all of this, we really wanted to transform the way in which we marketed Harrah's from the old traditional gaming way, which was very traditional, where you give people inducements to come play at your facility. The other thing that was going on was proliferation was occurring all over the place, and new customers were being literally converted. And I'll give an example of what I mean by this. In Memphis, pre-gaming in Tunica, the penetration rates of gaming was 15%. Post-Tunica, the penetration rates were 42, 45%. 45% of adult population gamed. So what we decided to do was find some marketing genius. And so Phil and I bumped into Gary Loveman at Harvard. We taught a case study up there and asked Gary if he would consider giving up being a professor and come run marketing. And Gary said, I'll tell you what, I'll do it, but let me run operations as well. Gary's no shrinking violet when it comes to his perception of his own abilities. Great, very smart man, and I have enormous respect for him. So we brought him in, and Phil said, here's what I'd like to do, is I really want you two guys to run the business. I'm president. Why don't I sort of create a 3-man office of the president? So I was chief financial officer, ran development, co-president. Gary ran marketing, Gary ran operations, and basically he and I ran the company. So that's what we did. It was a very, very interesting period of time.
Did you see yourself in competition with Gary, or was that more of a partnership?
It was more of a partnership, but the interesting thing, this is the interesting thing. Gary wanted to be CEO like you cannot believe, and I really wasn't sure whether I wanted to be the CEO of the company, and so it was very collaborative. But I was always cognizant of the fact that he wanted to be CEO. Let's just leave it like that.
Okay, all right. And that exhibited itself in certain ways that we don't need to discuss. Is that what you're saying?
I'll see it a little bit. But the other thing that happened there, which was very interesting too, and Phil said to me, he said, let's move the corporate headquarters to Las Vegas. He said, but here's the deal. If you don't want to do it, we won't do it. This is what he said to me. And I said, okay, Phil, let's do it. And Phil's wife had just gotten over leukemia. She had gotten leukemia, and she had been cured from this. And he had promised the wife that he was going to move back at some point to Reno. And so when we moved back to Nevada, Phil went to Reno. Gary, we gave him an airplane to commute from Boston, and I was the only senior executive in Las Vegas. So it was an interesting period of time.
So how did you get from Harrah's to Gaylord?
Mike Rose called me one day and said, hey, I've just done something that you may not be happy with, but I've told a friend of mine from Heidrick & Struggles that they should call you because Gaylord was in free fall. We may want to talk about this in the Q&A and the reasons for it, because it's an interesting case study. And Mike said, I've given this guy your name about whether he should come talk to you about being CEO of the company. And I said, Mike, why would I do that? I was paid a lot of money at Harrah's. I mean, you can read the proxy statements. I took a $250,000 pay cut when I came to Gaylord in my base salary, and so I was paid a lot of money. Why would I do this? And the reality of it, after spending 3 months making sure the runway was clear enough for me to be successful, which meant we could change the board, no sacred cows, and come in and basically do, remember, you may remember this, Jim, but at the time, Gaylord was owned 38% by the family. So they basically controlled the company. And I had to get this agreement with the family that we could fundamentally change the board to make it a professional board of directors rather than surrounded by friends of the family, and no sacred cows, and just change the lineup. And then for me, it was really more of a, okay, well, let me sort of go and see if we can transform this company, a company that was in free fall. And really, frankly, it was a quality of life thing, because in the gaming business, what I'd been doing is sitting a lot on airplanes, flying to Australia and New Zealand, and because I ran development for the company, and I was getting pretty tired doing that stuff. So I thought, you know what, this is going to be an interesting change of life for me.
Right.
And in the end, I came and did it, and frankly, it's been a wonderful experience.
Were there parts of Harrah's that you brought to Gaylord, or that you've emulated, if that's the right word? Or?
Well, most of the senior management team, for one. A lot of the senior management team, for one. But the notion of customer intelligence, we do things in our business that Michael heads up for us. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of work around managing who the right customer is. So that's important. But the philosophical thing that we did for Gaylord is which we sort of semi-brought from Harrah's. When Harrah's first was created 70 years ago by a guy called Bill Harrah, he had this very focused, people-centric approach to life, where the people were very important. The people that came to work for the organization was very important. Over the years, some of that had sort of been lost in translation. But one of the things that I really wanted to do at Gaylord was convert Gaylord into a very people-centric, where our workforce comes first and our customers come second, philosophy. And I really wanted to put that to work here. So we brought that to Gaylord.
I want to roll forward in Gaylord's history a little bit, and I want to come back to some leadership moments in a few minutes. But Gaylord has really changed since you joined the company. And then this last year, a year ago, went through probably one of the most unbelievable life events that I can imagine in a company's history. Can you describe what happened a little bit, the period right at the end of April, early May, when the flood hit Nashville?
Yeah. The funny thing about it is I've talked about this quite a bit to industry groups, and people have said to me, the decisions that we took on that evening of May 2nd, on that Sunday evening, it's been sort of hypothesized to me that they're some of probably the toughest decisions you've ever had to take in your business career. I honestly believe that the decisions we took on that evening were some of the easiest decisions, really. Because you have to make a trade-off in life, right, between protecting people and ticking people off, and the consequences of potentially putting people's lives at risk versus ticking people off. It was such an easy call to make, I believe. Right. And that evening will remain with me for the rest of my life, because for those of you that don't know the detail, what happened on that Sunday afternoon, we have a very strong crisis program in our company. What we worry about is some crazy walking into one of our places and shooting. So we have the manual, we have the Bible of what you do when that happens, and we train against that. And so come Sunday lunchtime, we had, on that May 2nd, our crisis communication program kicked in. So every hour and a half, we were having phone calls because the water of the Cumberland River was rising rapidly. But all the way through that process, all through Sunday afternoon, the information we're getting from the regulatory authorities, the Army Corps of Engineers and the National Weather Service is, don't worry, the water's going to crest 2 feet below your levee. So at 6 o'clock in the evening, we're still getting this every 1 hour directive coming out of the National Weather Service, don't worry. I don't know why I did this, but I said to our head of design and construction, do me a favor, take the chief engineer and walk that levee. The river had already stopped raining. Walk that levee, make sure the levee hasn't been breached or anything like that. He comes back on the 7 o'clock call. He said, Colin, there's something amiss here. The Army Corps of Engineers and the National Weather Service are saying it's going to crest tomorrow morning 2 feet below. It's 6 inches below the top of the levees right now. Wow. So get out of here. You know, we got to get our people out. And we had the whole hotel evacuated within an hour and a half. By 10:30 that night, we had 3 feet of water in the Cascades lobby. By midnight, we had 6 feet of water in the Cascades lobby. And if any of you walk through that hotel, where you walk through those corridors at night, there's no light coming into them. You can't see a thing. It's like literally walking in a black cave. It just frightens the life out of me to think what could have happened. The reason, what we found out subsequently, is the Army Corps of Engineers released water, increased the water levels out of Old Hickory Dam 13 times on Sunday afternoon and didn't tell anybody. And so the amount of water went from 20,000 cubic feet per second to 220,000 cubic feet per second. And that's what flooded Nashville.
And actually the river backed up, I think. It did it not, or it just increased the flow tremendously?
Just everything went up because of the volume of water. Right. It couldn't get out of the Cordell Hull lock quick enough, so everything just rose, and it was shocking. And you know, we had our chief accounting officer, both his aunt and uncle were both killed in this, and there were 24 people killed in the whole of Nashville, and it was a shocking event. Right. And we want to make sure it never happens again, and that's why we're working with the mayor and the authorities to find a broad solution for the city.
So as I've heard lots of stories about the response of the employees at Gaylord, how they reacted. Can you reflect on that a little bit? Why did that happen? What was it that drove the response of the employees and the people that were associated with Gaylord? Was that something you trained for, or how did you do that?
I want to give you a little bit more of a complicated answer,
okay,
or if I could, because I think it's very important as you think about your careers, you think about the way you will be as executives in organizations. When I was growing up in Europe, when I was chief financial officer for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa operation for a period, we had a hotel in Munich that continually smacked every hotel from an occupancy and a profit perspective. It had a Holiday Inn a mile and a half down the street, but this hotel was an old, scruffy old hotel owned by a bank. And it always shocked me how they were able to do this. And then I discovered the reason at a Christmas party when I went there, and all the employees put on a pantomime. Christmas time, I went at Christmas time, and all the customers from Germany came in, and the employees put on a pantomime. And I thought to myself, why would these guys do this? Mm-hmm. And then I saw the interaction between the employees of that hotel and the general manager and the leadership of that hotel, and there was such a close relationship. And I thought, boy, the culture of this place is wonderful. Now fast forward, when I came to Gaylord in 2001, and I'd seen what had happened to Opryland, where the hotel in '98 was one of the greatest convention hotels in the country. And between '98 and 2001, it had gone into free fall. And the reason for it wasn't because the bricks and mortar were bad. It was because the soul had been ripped out of the place, because the company had 14 businesses. It was totally, it wasn't focused. And in order to provide nourishment to the businesses that were losing money, of which there were 10 out of the 14, they started to rip the guts out of Opryland to try and sustain the profitability. The consequence was the employees moved backwards, the employees sort of disengaged, and the customer satisfaction went off a cliff. So now fast forward to the night of the flood. What we've tried to do at the company, what I have tried to instill in our management team, is that this business is really about people, and we have spent so much of our time with this stars first philosophy. And so the culture in our business is extraordinarily strong. The engagement of our stars is very, very high. We have Merits that comes in every year. Merits, the research company that does staff satisfaction, employee satisfaction for us. And they're actually going to start in about a month from now to do it again. I remember 2-3 years ago them doing it, and I asked the professor who did this, I said, when you talk to our board about this, would you talk about best demonstrated practices and who is the best in this, in our sector that does, the engagement with people? And the answer, he looked at me and he said, well, you guys are the very best in this industry. So the night of the flood, we had the plan, but we also had leaders running around the place that care about people, that just don't care about themselves. The empathy those people show to the workforce, and the workforce was engaged. We had 80 of our people that lost their homes that Saturday and Sunday, but those folks were in the hotel trying to make sure that our guests were safe and secure. I was at that school all night, and with our management team, and it was extraordinary to see the engagement of our people. And the interesting thing is now we've rebuilt the business.
Yes, you have.
And the business is now open. The engagement of our people is better today than it was before that flood occurred. Those people are so proud of what they did, and those people are so proud of the organization they work for. And if you don't believe me, you can talk to McBride, you can talk to one or two of our people that we have here today. The engagement is extraordinary. And so it's this investment that we have put into our workforce that enabled us to deal with this issue the way we dealt with it. It wasn't because we had the Bible that we could, page 15 says you move them out of this door. I mean, it's the spirit in which these people did this. It was extraordinary.
So life lessons learned, looking back across this series of events that you've been on, but also really turning Gaylord around. What would you tick off and say these are kind of top 2 or 3 things that I really are on my list of learning events, leadership events?
Jim Collins has written 2 or 3 books. There's some of the stuff you like, some of the stuff is okay, some of the stuff is really good. But I absolutely will go to my grave believing having the right people on the bus, having the right leadership team is the right thing to do. And one of the things that I counsel our senior leadership to do is to constantly evaluate the quality of the people that they have working for them. One of the traits, and you haven't seen it yet, well, maybe the executive MBA program folks have, but one of the traits of leaders is that they tend to want to tell people what they want to hear, and rather than sit down and really counsel people and help them become better at their jobs. So having good leaders that are honest, that are straightforward, that have empathy, that are not arrogant. I got to tell you, I don't want to recruit people in this organization that fundamentally only care about themselves. We don't want people like that in our business. We want people that care about people because we're in the service business. I believe, by the way, every business is in the service business. Yeah. You're in the service business. And so, this is a lesson, the lesson that leadership and having people that care about people is something that I think over this last 12 months, it's proven to me that this is absolutely the right philosophy.
As you try to engender that concept of leadership, and is that something you live personally? Is that something you convey in what you do, or how you do it, or what's your own personal philosophy of training leaders?
Well, it's daily. It's daily, and I think as a leader in our company, I always sort of sit down with folks and tell them what's on my mind. Mm-hmm. I never pull my punches, and I think honesty in business is very, very important. And I with a lot of our execs who I spend quite a bit of time with, basically every session we have is a coaching session. So I try and do that all the time.
I could spend all day talking to you. This has been a great time. We're going to close this session out a little bit, but I would like to invite you back, if you would, and speak to our entire student body. This has been delightful. Any parting words for our audience that you want to say as far as life lesson, what you would suggest, how they mold themselves, anything you've learned that is a secret to your success as a business leader?
I really, and it's repetitive, what I'm going to say. You guys have the privilege of being educated at a magnificent institution, a great college. You turn out some wonderful people. We recruit a lot of them. But the thing I urge you to do, what I would urge you to do when you go about your endeavors, whatever they may be caring about the people you work with. And when you do that, and people respect you for it, it's magical. The things you can accomplish as a leader, when people genuinely say about you, this person cares about me, it's tremendous. If you have folks working with you or working for you in the future, and your folks are saying to you, this person is really more concerned about how soon he becomes or she becomes a CEO or a chief financial officer or the next big thing, and they don't care about me, that shows up in behavior. That shows up in the way the person that works with you does what you would like them to do. If they think you care about them and know you care about them, they will do anything for you and the organization. And so think about that. Jim, we've talked about this.
Yes.
You know that to be true too.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's my own life.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.